Hello and welcome to the EduTalk Author Series hosted by Biotone EduPartner Program, and massage industry authors. The EduTalk Author Series is a bonus extension to EduTalk Tuesdays to further support virtual learning and connect you with industry authors who, through their books and textbooks, support your career success. Today's author is Nikki Kenward. Nikki is a UK upledger craniosacral therapist specializing in gut health, pediatrics, PTSD, and trauma. She's an international educator and a certified international healthcare educator, sharing her decades of knowledge through her teachings and her books. Let's listen and learn as Nikki shares her insights, inspiration, tools, and tips about the connection between our gut health and emotional health from her book, Overcoming Chronic Digestive Conditions. Hi, Nikki, welcome. I know we have a lot to get to, so I'll turn it over to you and I'll see you at the end.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And it's just fabulous to be here talking to you about my book, Overcoming Chronic Digestive Conditions. So where did the inspiration for this book come from? Initially, it was my own experience. It was personal experience with my own gut through my life that inspired me to research and read and try and understand more the connection between my mental health and the way my gut was behaving or not behaving often. It also was inspired from my mission, really, as a therapist, as an author, and in my work indeed as a theatre director, to destigmatize the whole area of mental health. And when you talk about mental health and bowel movements in the same sentence, often it's a double taboo, there's a bit of an awkward silence, but this isn't how it should be. So usually these issues stem from some early trauma. And if we can't talk about them, be open about them, understand what's happening, the results are shame, isolation, and people get locked away in very unhappy, disconnected lives. So I had a kind of light bulb moment that I was part of the problem. I did not talk about my mental health and bowel problems. So why would anybody else? So if I didn't start to open this up and be one of the people opening up this conversation, nothing was going to change or move forward. So I did. I wrote the book, Overcoming Chronic Digestive Conditions, Release the Visceral Layers of Post-Traumatic Gut Disorder. So I was also inspired, of course, by patients coming to me in my clinic, often with ongoing chronic digestive issues that they just didn't seem to be able to get better, either through Western medicine or through working with diet with highly skillful nutritional therapists. There was still a missing piece. There was a missing piece in the puzzle. And so the dysfunction and suffering was just going on and on. So what will you find in the covers of my book, Overcoming Chronic Digestive Conditions? Well, I never wanted to write a textbook because this book is for everybody who's interested in the subject, either personally or as a therapist or for a friend. So the story of my own journey is in the book, and that is interwoven with information about the latest research and insights on gut health and emotional stress. It also shares a lot of the anatomy and physiology of this amazing part of our body. So we tend to think of it as a long tube from the mouth to the anus. The food goes in one end and stools come out of the other. But in fact, it's a complex, fascinating, beautiful world of many layers, many cell populations, all working together. Also, we respond to our food, but more than that, to all of our experiences in the world. and it's part of our digesting our experience as well as digesting our food. So there's so much research into the second brain, the enteric nervous system, and how it can remember stress and challenge and get stuck in unhelpful patterns of dysfunction, just as other parts of our autonomic nervous system can tend to get stuck in fight and flight or freeze. In fact, often it's the second brain that responds by going into freeze when we are really overwhelmed with what's happening to us on an emotional and challenge level. So it's because it goes into freeze, it's even harder for a therapist or for ourselves to really get into those deeply hidden stories in the gut. And I just knew that there was a missing piece here, something we needed to understand to be able to help people and support these places in the body where some of our deepest troubles lie. Indeed, if we look at Eastern medicine compared with Western medicine, we can see there's a huge divide here, because in the Eastern world, it is often believed that the lower dantian, the lower part of the abdomen, is in fact the center of our emotional and spiritual growth. Whereas in the West, as I've just said, we think of it as just being a place where we make bowel movements and stools, and nothing much more than that. So I really wanted to bridge the gap between these two ideas and belief systems and show that by working as therapists, upledger craniosacral therapists especially, we can use our knowledge and skills, the new knowledge about the gut, to enable people to grow emotionally and spiritually by processing some of these deeper stories in the gut. So as well as destigmatizing this area, I wanted to look at the labels that we use. You know, so many people come with the label of post-traumatic stress disorder, and I just think, drop the disorder. It's not a disorder, it's a response to our life. And I coined the phrase post-traumatic gut, initially disorder, and then I dropped my own disorder. And the reason I did that is because, again, what happens in the gut is a result of how we respond to our experiences and the different stresses and challenges of our life. And in fact, most people with trauma have some gut issues as well. But of course, when the diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder was created, it was created by psychologists and psychiatrists who weren't usually looking for gut symptoms, but they're pretty much always there. So post-traumatic gut is a phrase that I think is more useful. I don't like putting the disorder on the end. For me, better questions for people are, what happened to you and what do you need? So how can my work on the gut and emotional challenge and stress help therapists and people's quality of life? Well, I'm hoping that by reading my book, other body workers, obviously upledger craniosacral therapists, are going to have more insight into the connection between these two parts of us, our emotional life and our gut health. And with those insights and understanding of the research with their hands, they're going to be able to help strain and tension patterns here, things that are not just working well, to improve and function better. So also for talking therapists, I know who have been helped by reading this book, understanding that connection can really help the people that they're working with. So the main thing to remember for any kind of therapist working in this area is to create safety, as much safety as possible, because our enteric nervous system is moment by moment always working out how safe we feel at any time. And so in order to get to these deeper hidden stories in the body, first creating that safe space is going to be essential if we're going to succeed. So the other thing I want to say really is just that I hope this book will offer hope, because we understand now that the enteric nervous system is neuroplastic, just as the brain and spinal cord are. So there is possibility of change and help there. We talk increasingly about post-traumatic growth. And this is where really we can help our emotional and spiritual lives to grow as a result of looking at these deeper stories in the gut. So we don't need to try and be who we were before any trauma or challenge, but look forward to discovering who we're going to become in the future.
Thank you so much for quickly running the concept of your book down for us. And, I was thinking that people are familiar with therapy
Mm,
for problems and issues and upsets, let's say. But that's not connected to how the body is actually functioning.
mm,
As I see it as a layperson. Oh, I'm going to my therapist and,
mm.
they're going to help me with this, but it's not connected at that, to how my body is reacting or how
Yeah.
anyone's body would react. And also, as I was thinking about this, listening to you, all the times where you feel like you've been punched in the stomach emotionally, or you find you're holding your breath. You
Mm.
don't associate that with bodily functions, let's say. Uh,
Exactly. And yet our whole life is in our body, our history. And by just even knowing that, I think that helps people to have more insight into what's happening. And in fact, I know a number of, well, quite a few talking therapists now who do somatic, who do body work as well, as they're realizing that they can't leave the body out of the story.
and I believe that's true.
Mm.
Um, I had one of my first edu talks was a woman who talked about the mind body emotional connection. And what happens to you in your life becomes lodged in your body. Th-
Absolutely.
this really um, does boil it down to really functioning.
Mm,
It's not like, oh, my shoulder is hurting because I've always felt I had the weight of the world on me.
mm,
It's That's one thing. But
mm,
as you said, if it's been with you through your lifetime,
mm.
it's got to be more internal, and I would think um more tenseness or non-function um normally, if I'm making
Absolutely.
sense.
No, absolutely. And the issues get buried very deeply, and particularly in the gut. That was my own experience and why I've done this work.
Right.
Mm.
And gut feeling. I mean, when
Yeah,
when
it's
you
all in
react
our
to a
language, isn't
situation.
it?
What's that?
Yeah, it's all in our language. We talk about gut instinct, gut feeling. As I said,
Right.
the Eastern belief system believes that's where our emotional and spiritual growth is centered.
Right. I think you referenced the second brain,
Yeah,
and
yeah, which it is. It's its own complex processing data center, and it has as many neurons as the spinal cord.
so interesting.
Yeah.
Now, as people are listening to this, or um, before they pick up the book, w- what is the connection there for them that, oh, I'm
Mm,
having bowel problems. maybe I should talk to a therapist, which isn't necessarily the route they go. They might think they need to speak to a doctor, a
Mm.
physical doctor. And
Yeah, and if there's a serious problem, obviously we always recommend people get that checked with a medical doctor. But I think that if we read this book, we understand that connection. I've got quite a few self-help strategies in the book where people can make friends with their own gut issues if they get their hands on themselves. I talk them through a few guided visualizations. And then, of course, they can always find somebody who's done my training if they want to take it further. And I think just understanding something more helps to be able to connect. So that's why when this happens, I get this happening in my gut.
right. Now, we've talked about the book, but I haven't seen it. Do you have a copy with you?
I do. Shall I show you? Here it is.
Yes. And would you just like to open up and show us a section of the book, like maybe the self-help or um,
So let me. Well, it also has case histories in it.
oh, wonderful.
So from my clinical practice, so it has my story, it has the more textbook stuff, it has strategies, but it also I've written up some of my clinical stories from people so they can see how it works. Yeah. And the nice thing about this one is it has a really good index in the back for you to look stuff up in.
So to keep learning, expand your learning on the topic.
Yeah,
Now,
exactly. There's a lot of referencing in it.
now, where would people go to purchase the book? Where would they learn more about this and also go to purchase it?
They can find it if they go to upledger.com and then they click on products, they'll find the book.
Wonderful. Is it also sold on Amazon or strictly through Upledger Institute?
It's also sold on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, Simon and Schuster have it. So yes, I mean, if you're a body worker, probably it's easy to get it from upledger.com.
Upledger. And if you're an individual that is not a body worker and yet curious about your book and also finding a therapist who can help them, I would think going through Upledger Institute.
Exactly.
2 in 1.
And then, yes, absolutely. They can get the book and they can also find a therapist in their area. Yeah.
Great. And I see that we have your email address, Nikki, on the screen by your name, and people are welcome to email you directly with any questions.
Absolutely. I'm always delighted to hear from people. Happy to answer questions as best I can. And it's always so fascinating to hear how people respond to the book and what impact it's had on them.
Well, this is wonderful. And I'd like to mention that Nikki has reviewed her other book, which off the top of my head, I'm not remembering the title.
It's all in the gut.
All in the Gut. And that is reviewed in the EduTalk author series as well, which can be found through biotone.com under the EduTalk tab. And we're fortunate enough to have Nikki presenting a live EduTalk on Tuesday, April 2nd, I believe it is. And April 2nd. I still use a paper calendar. So true confessions, but I can't wait for that. I think that will be fascinating. And thank you so much for making time today to share your book with us, Overcoming Chronic Digestive Issues or Conditions. And we'll look forward to hearing more from you in April 2nd for the live EduTalk.
It's been a delight. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and be well, Nikki.
You too.